Colonel Wyatt hits the screen, got stories bold and keen. Old soldier, sharp and mean, tells truths they've never seen. Rugby lover with a roar, Africa flowing in his core. YouTube rants they can't ignore, his passion makes his heart soar. Colonel Wyatt, hear his call, shining light through it all. Trolls may rise, but he'll stand tall. Subscribe now, don't miss the brawl. Military mind, keen and wise, truths come out, no disguise. South African skies, in his eyes, hear his voice, no surprise. Retired soldier with the fight, in the dark he brings the light. Angry rants, truths ignite, join the cause, join the ride. Colonel Wyatt, hear his call, shining light through it all. Trolls may rise, but he'll stand tall. Subscribe now, don't miss the brawl. Enemies knocked on his door, trolls attack, but he's more with each click. Watch him soar on the truth waves, he explodes. Colonel Wyatt, hear his call, shining light through it all. Trolls may rise, but he'll stand tall. Subscribe now, don't miss the brawl. Right now, don't miss the brawl.
Take a picture.
Hey folks, good evening. It is the 16th of July, 2026. Night Owls here from central Pennsylvania. Professor G, Afrikaner Act to save refugees. What's that? Okay. All right. Well, how y'all doing? How's Haley doing? Oh, yeah, she's doing good. Okay. Right. Just want to check on something here. Oh, sorry, Murray. That's pretty. AI. Very pretty image they came up with there. Sorry, Murray. Good stuff. Okay. So the President Trump spoke this evening to the nation, and none of the major networks carried it. Why? Because they're evil. Because they're evil. They didn't carry it. And shame on them. Shame on them. This is who they are. This is how they behave. This is what they're all about. They hate America so much so that they won't even show the President of the United States. When did Trump speak? Did he? Here we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, he only spoke for about 15 or 20 minutes, and they didn't bother covering it. He talked about a number of things that are wrong with what's going on in the country, including Chinese interference in our elections, while the Democrats are running around lying about Russian influence with 5,000 ads purchased on Facebook, which anybody can buy for a couple dollars. In the 2016 election, the Chinese were actually infiltrating our... What's this? You have to speak into the mic. You're giving me... Oh, got it, Sean. Sorry. Look, the software just updated, and I didn't check, so I thought maybe something serious was going on there. No, the broadcasting software updated before it went live. Something serious was going on. Okay, it sounds good, actually. I was worried that it might be a problem. Gotcha. Okay, well, I'm going to give you President Trump's... I'm going to listen to it entirely. But first off, let me explain to you why all of this crap is such a problem, okay? So, Redi Tlaib hosted the Mandela Global Leadership Forum last night. Richard Stengel, a former Time magazine managing editor and former U.S. Undersecretary of Labor for Public Diplomacy, who collaborated on The Long Walk to Freedom, that's Mandela's autobiography, was asked about the current relations between the United States and South Africa and what Madiba would do in this moment of tension. Framed by Qatari mouthpiece Redi Tlaib as a small nation feeling consistently whipped and beaten by a powerful nation. I'm so sick of this bullshit line. South Africa just got caught spying at our nuclear research facility. Got caught red-handed. South Africa's undermining our foreign policy. I'm so sick of this bullshit. But these little leftist hate wankers, it takes about 48 seconds into this, and you're going to see what they think about white South Africans. This is what they think about white South Africans. And I'll be making a video after this about just how serious this is. But here, let's listen in, then I'll show you it.
This goes back to where we started in a way, that his view of what's going on now would not be a cuddly...
He's supposing to project what Nelson Mandela would be thinking now because he's an expert on Nelson Mandela. But this asshat, let's listen to what he has said. This was on SABC News.
Grandfatherly view of it. He was an anti-colonialist. He was an anti-imperialist.
No, he was an anti-apartheid activist, not an anti-colonialist. Nelson Mandela played no role in Pan-Africanism, no role in the end of colonialism. Colonialism was dead and buried by the time that Nelson Mandela was released from prison. So you can spew all this nonsense, you hate-wanking leftist piece of human sludge, but let's hear some more.
He would see the current actions through the lens of colonialism.
He would see the current actions of the United States through the lens of colonialism. Fuck you, buddy. Piss off.
And imperialism, and he was violently against that. And he
was violently against it, so violently that he formed a terrorist group known as Umkhonto we Sizwe, and was caught and convicted of treason for his terrorist actions that took place. Although, let's be honest, most of the terrorist actions of MK took place while he was in prison when they murdered women and children and men in restaurants and cinemas.
He's stuck up for the little guy. He would be cordial with people that he's talking to, cordial with even the President of the United States, but he would object to the kinds of things that the United States is doing. I think he would be utterly shocked by this idea that white Afrikaners, there's a white genocide. I mean, he bent over backwards to have people like that live in safety in a unified rainbow nation.
People like that live in a safe, unified nation. People like that. Do you mean white people, you racist pig?
And I think it's just, he would be astonished by the hypocrisy of it and by the danger of it, in the sense that giving succor to people who don't need it and not providing assistance and help to the people who do.
What an ignoramus, racist, slimy piece of pig, shithead, dirtbag, uninformed, asshole, brain dead, leftist, self-pleasuring hate wanker. This guy ran Time magazine. Now you know why the media is so corrupt. People who don't deserve it. People who don't need it. Listen, fuck twat. You've not been in these people's shoes. You're an arrogant asshat. People who don't need it. What, you mean like the $8.1 billion we pissed down the drain for the lack of gratitude and the arrogant asshattery of the likes of Cyril Ramaphosa and his bullshit vaccine apartheid? My goodness. This is unbelievable. This retard, this fucking retard and his mouth. And you hear them clapping and laughing at the fate of white people who are raped and murdered and butchered. I'm so sick of these people. He doesn't need a lesson, Alex. He needs a PK. This retard needs to be smacked upside the head by someone who freaking understands life. Yeah, okay, well, that's captured and that will be exposed. There'll be a video forthcoming on that. Right, he knows nothing about South Africa. He isn't there. and he's talking through a lens that's 40 years old. What are the consequences for China interfering in U.S. elections? Oh, there will be consequences. Okay, let's tune in. I had to share that with you first. So if you're wondering why there's a program for South Africans, this is what the headwinds you're up against. This is the bullshit you face each and every day. Shameful people like this. I'll make a video and I'll get 5,000 views. And that's it. That's all I'll get, 5,000 views when I report on this, if I'm lucky. It should get 500,000 views, showing you the arrogance and the blatant disregard for the lives of white people, because white pigs hate white people. All right, let's get to this. It really pisses me off. I'm so sick of these asshats. Okay, where's it at? I gotta find where I had put this at. Sorry, guys. Here we go. All right, President Trump's address. Oh my goodness. So this is what he spoke tonight. Let's hear what he had to say. So he spoke about elections specifically. That was his big concern today.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'm proud to report that our country is safer, stronger, and far wealthier than it has ever been before. We are doing great. Less than 2 years ago, we inherited an economic and social disaster. After the worst inflation in 48 years, the wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, including criminals of all types, and 11,888 murders, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore. 2 years ago, our country was dead. Now, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. America is respected like we have never been respected before. We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week, it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars. Like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job-creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nation's policy, because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov, this will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to trumpaccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is 0. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide, with the murder rate at its lowest level since 1900, or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed, because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure, one where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence, revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes, and really exposes like levels never thought possible, to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country, a standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems, dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it, made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026, this is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela, and that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned, they couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking the the FBI director to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, a long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have. In a rare move, NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they know how corrupt our system is and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses. They use our public multi-billion-dollar in value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody, and it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to unite us, not to divide us. This should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of notifying the states whose election data was compromised by the People's Republic of China and many others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of Homeland Security will hold a briefing to outline his department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states, and we are committing to fix it. And we're also committing to be working with those states and local jurisdictions to help them fix and patch known technical vulnerabilities before the midterm elections. We have very important elections coming up. We want those elections to be honest. I've also ordered DHS to notify every state about non-citizens on their voter rolls and direct them to remove all ineligible voters from the lists immediately. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat because your policies are so bad and your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo voter ID. How simple is that? Could I have your photo, please? Photo voter ID. All voters must provide proof of citizenship. Are you a citizen of our country, please? And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel if you're going away on business or vacation. These reforms are urgently needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military. And God bless America. Thank you very much.
President Trump's speaking to the nation tonight, not covered by the corrupt leftist media networks who would pick up any time that Joe Biden was picking his nose. It would be a news story. And they do not pick up when the most powerful figure in the world addresses the world because they are vile, repulsive human sludge. And I don't know if their broadcasting license needs to be taken, but certainly attention needs to be paid to these clowns at ABC, NBC, CBS, and places like that. That's why I find it so comical when I see people who are repulsive, who write nasty things. And for instance, you hear the snarky comments from uneducated rubes who say, oh, Chris Wyatt, independent journalist. He's not an independent journalist. I am. I'm credentialed in media outlets. The fact that I don't have a leftist media house behind me doesn't strip away the fact that I am a journalist. I don't hear them whining about Nick Shirley, who has no experience whatsoever. He just happened to run into a guy that was investigating the Minnesota fraud for years and being ignored, and his channel caught fire because it came at the right time in the right place. Nobody's saying he's not a journalist. Ridiculous nonsense. These people are really out of absolute control. It's astounding to me that they get away with the crap they get away with, but they do. And it's a shame, but it's true. So let me go ahead and I want to talk about some things here that we need to discuss. Hang on a second here. Get rid of a few of these windows here that I don't need. I'm going to read some of the stuff that we just talked about here from tonight. There we go. Okay, let's do that here. And for some reason, what I'm looking for is in the wrong place. Here we go. All right, so now I can get rid of this. There we go. And you're going to see that what the media claims is news is merely op-ed lying to the American people. It is not their place to make these claims without evidence. But what they do is they make these claims without evidence, and then they accuse the president of the exact same thing. They express their opinion, and they attack the president for expressing facts, which they call his opinion. Meanwhile, the California governor's race appears to be over. The leftists are winning, and there's no hope for Steve Hilton if polls can be believed. So we're going to talk about those things here. So I want to show you a few things tonight. There we go. We got the ball now. I think what I needed. Okay, so as I said, the media outlets failed to cover the story. The Americans who hate America are spoiled crybabies who've never struggled in their life. They've had things handed to them for the most part, and they've never lived overseas. They have no idea what they're talking about. You see Nick Shirley in the hearing? No Dems attended. No, I didn't watch Nick Shirley. No, I didn't. I didn't see the hearing. I slept less than the Colonel. Went to bed at 1:15, woke up at 2:40. I'm still up. Hey, Mike. Yep. All right, so let's, first off, as I said, Vermont had the courage to report on this. This is good of them. Sure, we got it. Okay, there we go. Not all major networks carrying President Trump's address. In fact, none of them other than Fox News was. Or were they? Let's see. 2 of the 3 major television networks will not cut in their programming for Trump's address. ABC and NBC declined to carry coverage over their regularly scheduled broadcast. When asked by Reuters whether they planned to air the president's address, CBS did not respond. All 3 of them didn't cover it. Shame on them. So, they didn't cover it. So the president was set to speak, and already this afternoon, without even having heard his speech, the New York Times, under news, this is listed as news. This is not op-ed. This is listed as news. President speaking election security. And already tonight, they're just making stuff up. President Trump has sowed doubts about the integrity. President Trump revisited some of the assertions during a primetime address to the country, yet this was published before the speech even occurred. Do you see that? This story was published, was updated at 10:43. So, okay, but 10:43 it was updated. That was less than an hour after he spoke. Less than an hour after President Trump spoke, they've already written this. Revisit some assertions to the country that center election security. His false claims have either exaggerated or obscured some genuine security concerns about elections, particularly as relate to foreign meddling. That's an opinion. That's not news. That's not fact. That is that hate-wanking journalist opinion. And it's disguised as news for the rubes who get their information from the New York Slimes. That is not news. That's an opinion. How do they prove he's peddling anything? They can't. They simply print lies. That is nothing but lies. In recent years, foreign adversaries, especially Russia and Iran, have sought to influence presidential election cycles through a mix of online propaganda, hack, and leak operations, but no evidence ever emerged showing that vote counts have been manipulated or corrupted. Intelligence reports, state audits of vote tallies, and lawsuits have repeatedly affirmed official results 2020. That's actually not the truth. That's actually not truth. Most of these lawsuits, which had merit, were thrown out corruptly by courts or judges who said that the people asking for them had no merit. For instance, Pennsylvania, the attorneys general from around the country who filed a class action lawsuit in the Pennsylvania case, the case was corruptly dismissed by the leftist 5-2 Democrat bench in the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, falsely claiming the attorneys generals of those 16 states had no standing. Well, of course they have standing. If my vote doesn't count in Pennsylvania, if our 20 electoral votes didn't count in 2020 and they were thrown to Joe Biden, which they were, then it defrauds the people in the 16 other states of an outcome. To hear a bench of supposedly wizened individuals who've attended law school and practiced law for decades have such an asinine opinion about standing when it comes to legal case is beyond comprehension. They take us for fools. They take us for fools. They are the fools. These slimy reporters. This is updated less than an hour after the president spoke, and they're already spreading their lies. This is what CNN had to say, updated at the bottom of this hour. Trump's newly declassified documents do and don't say about threats to U.S. elections. The documents are newly declassified and largely discussed vulnerabilities have been known for years and election officials around the country have tried to address. But you see, CNN and Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and all of these outlets have claimed that Trump has never produced any evidence about these things. He's never proven how we're vulnerable. Now here he produces unclassified, declassified information to confirm his allegations. And now they just dismiss it. Well, we've known about this for years. No, you've dismissed it for years. You've said the system is secure. You see, this is what communist, leftist, totalitarian fascists do. Though the documents are newly declassified, they largely discuss vulnerabilities that have been known for years and election officials around the country have tried to address. But for years, you've dismissed this. You said there's no evidence of it. There's no evidence of widespread fraud. That's what they said 1,000,000 times, as if we're supposed to believe that. No one claimed widespread fraud. It didn't take widespread fraud to steal the 1960 election away from Richard Nixon. It took small-scale fraud in the city of Chicago, and that stole an election. One city in the country stole the election from Richard Nixon in 1960. It doesn't take widespread fraud. And now they're saying that we've known about this for years. But when Trump raised these vulnerabilities, it's a conspiracy. He's just saying that because he's bitter. No. And now he produces declassified information that confirms what he said. And you can't accept it. Wow. None of the declassified information supports the claim that any previous election results were manipulated by foreign interference or fraud in a way that would have changed the outcome. That's an impossibility. That's an impossibility. You can't say that 1 million fraudulent votes by illegal aliens unless you knew the ballot they voted for. But we won't know. Your name doesn't go on the ballot. It doesn't go into the system, and then we track who voted for whom. So it's an impossibility, and they know it's an impossibility. Wow. So this is what they wrote before it even happened. Here, the New York Times. This is 35 minutes ago. So this is supposed to be news. This is not op-ed. Not op-ed. This is on their news site. Trump exaggerates claims about election vulnerabilities. What do you mean Trump exaggerates? That is opinion. That's not a fact. Trump drew selectively from documents his aides published online to insinuate the U.S. election has been compromised for years and that government officials had suppressed the evidence. Well, when we see indictments against officials, then we'll know. We've had multiple cases of election fraud here in Pennsylvania, including a former Democratic congressman indicted and imprisoned for election fraud in the past election cycle. President Trump has at times made outlandish claims about the safety of American voting systems in a White House address on Thursday, drawing selectively from documents his aides published online to insinuate that U.S. elections have been compromised for years and that government officials have suppressed the evidence. Well, first off, she uses the term aides, not the official, organized, appointed government bodies that investigated this, not the intelligence community. She claims his aides did it. Do you see how they manipulate the information? It wasn't his aides. It wasn't the White House chief of staff and his people that put this together. Two organizations at the White House, in the federal government, and then the chiefs of every intelligence agency confirmed this stuff. Despite dozens of investigations, audits, recounts, and court proceedings at local, state, and federal levels that all failed to produce examples of major voting fraud. See, always major voting fraud. Again, it doesn't take major fraud to steal an election. These long claims, all it took was Georgia and Pennsylvania. That's it. 12,000 votes in Georgia, and the mysterious disappearing 178,000 vote lead that disappeared overnight in Pennsylvania. Yep. So this is opinion disguised as news. So let's see what the White House has to say. If you go to the whitehouse.gov, this is the thing that leads it off. Election integrity documents are available for review. You click on it and it takes you right to this page, election integrity. Vulnerabilities, electronic balloting, China's acquisition of data, Michigan voter registration investigation, and non-citizens on state rolls. So the data's there. Right, so I'm going to read to you from a few of these things. Okay? All right, so let me show you this, what I'm reading from, so you can see it, okay? Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security has initiated multiple investigations related to allegations of non-citizen voting and registration. Review of the first set of public voter files from states that have not utilized the SAFE system revealed over 250,000 non-citizens are illegally registered to vote in just 4 of the 50 states for which public data files have been reviewed. State officials in California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Nevada have been notified of the serious threat to national security, and Department of Homeland Security stands ready to support their efforts to identify and remove ineligible registrants. The investigation is expanding to include multiple additional states. In addition, DHS will support the Department of Justice review of our voter files. Now, let me talk about this very quickly, what this means. In Maryland, the state of Maryland refused for over a year to remove a known illegal alien who defrauded Maryland public education system, defrauded Iowa public education system, hired as a superintendent when he was an illegal alien in this country, stealing someone's identity, carrying an unlicensed firearm in his car at a school. And for a year, over a year, Maryland refused to deregister that illegal alien from their voting rolls. Do you see what we're up against? States to protect federal elections. Numerous proactive conscientious state officials have successfully utilized free services offered by Homeland Security to assist. In the short time that the enhanced SAFE system has been available, 10 states have processed their full voter list. As of June 22nd, 2026, a total of 25 different states processed more than 68 million registration records through the SAFE system. DHS has enabled those states to identify 400,000 deceased registrants and over 28,000 non-citizens who illegally registered to vote. As demonstrated by the sample data to the right, these states are serious about ensuring that only U.S. citizens vote. DHS applauds their efforts to prevent non-citizens from registering and to remove ineligible registrants who unlawfully register. The states are Georgia, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, Idaho, Alabama, Missouri, Louisiana, and Kansas, all of which could credibly be called so-called red states. You could call all of them states. New York, California, New Jersey, Pennsylvania refusing to cooperate with federal authorities to determine who is voting illegally. There is undeniable pattern emerging as DHS begins to unravel the horrific damage done by open border policy of the Biden administration. Okay, so FBI witness interview approved for public release. It's from the FBI. In the fall of 2020, blank, who was not married at the time and went by blank, went to blank on blank in blank. This is what redaction does. People were standing outside office next door and asked blank if she wanted a job. Office was previously an eyeglass store. Blank went into the office and applied for a job registering people to vote. Blank was hired the following day. The office was run by a tall, thin white male with a bunch of information deleted here. Previously lived at, The job was to stand outside of businesses asking people if they wanted to register to vote. There were over 100 people doing the same job in the Muskegon area. These employees were paid based on how many completed registrations they submit each day, but the person couldn't recall how much she was paid per registration. The white male told employees that the organization was huge and had operations in other states. He also said that employees who did the best, meaning turning in the most voter registration applications, could travel to other states to work. Also drove employees to their locations and collect registration applications. Once the police executed a search warrant at the office, the employees were told their job assignment was over. They were shown 2 canvasser contracts, confirmed that she had filled out both these forms. Completed 22 voter registration applications attached, initially stated that she remembered all the people on the pages. After being told the applications appeared to be fabricated, she then stated that so-and-so told her all the employees that if they couldn't get enough applications, they should just fill them in. This occurred at a meeting with over 100 employees present. One of the employees asked what this person meant. The person couldn't recall if it was blank or blank in front of the group, but whichever it was, picked up a blank application and filled it out with made-up information and said, "This is what I mean." This person either then told them to make sure the information was filled out correctly or they wouldn't get credit for the application. Was told she needed to submit 7 to 8 applications per shift if working alone and 10 shifts per person. They were paid approximately $800 each payday. The company gave employees debit cards and loaded their pay on cards each week. Wow. This was conducted on December 12th, 2023, when Biden was in office. The Federal Bureau of Investigation covered up this report, and this has been hidden by corrupt officials. They were told to put any number she could think of for the Social Security number, but not to use their own Social Security number, date of birth. They were told she can make up names or use anyone else's name. They would return to the office at the end of the shift and fill in enough blank sheets with made-up people so that she reached her daily quota. Person confirmed she filled out all the Michigan-issued driver's license, Michigan-issued state ID card, and personal information sections of the 22 reviewed voter registration applications. Wow. These would have been signed by someone at the office before she turned them in, often helped fill in fabricated applications. If there were forms that were rejected because they weren't signed, sitting around the office, some employees would pick them up, sign them, and turn them in for credit. There were long lines of people at the end of each shift turning in their completed voter registration applications. The white male who ran the office left before the office closed. He never said he was leaving after he left and ran the office. The white male was around when people were instructed to fill out fake applications and where it was occurring. Wow. One was approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall, and the other was approximately 5 feet 6 inches, 120 pounds. They worked together and seemed fishy. They worked for this organization for almost a month, collected legitimate voter registration applications during this time. Wow. That is someone who was interrogated by the FBI on December 12th, 2023, during the Biden regime's administration. And this was covered up. They covered it up. Wow. The Cybersecurity Administration. Ready for that? election report by this is the people who, on the day of the election in 2020, claimed this was the most secure election in history before the polls even closed. Remember that? This is the most secure election in American history. How do you know that? You have not done a forensic check of anything. Not even states that closed their polls at 7 p.m. had been forensically checked. And he said that about Pennsylvania. Before I even turned in the results, or not before the judge, not me, I wasn't the judge then. Before the judge even turned the results into York County. York County had 5% of the votes counted when he claimed that Pennsylvania had the most secure system, the Cybersecurity Administration. 5% of the votes counted around 10:30 at night. Claimed that we had the most secure system when judges hadn't even turned in 85% of the votes on their thumb drives. This is what they claim. So here is the Cybersecurity Administration now, and let's see what they've got to say today, 6 years later. So that's the wrong window. Executive summary, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. From 2019 to 2024, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency conducted a set of technical and operational activities to evaluate the security of certain U.S. election systems. These activities, all carried out upon the request of system owners and operators, include direct examination of state-related software, penetration testing of state, local, tribal, and territorial networks, and incident response operations for intrusion in electronic systems. Through these activities, CISA developed a strong understanding of vulnerabilities that, at the time of testing, affected selected election-related software products. Their findings highlight the reality that election-related software, like all complex software, contains vulnerabilities that require timely remediation. While past partnerships with election vendors enabled early identification, structural constraints in the certification system significantly limit vendors' abilities to patch systems quickly. For example, some government systems certification regimes require that no patches be applied for months before an election. These limitations, combined with inconsistent vulnerability disclosure practices, result in election systems being deployed with known and unpatched security issues. Overall, the vulnerability of U.S. systems is shaped by the interaction of three major factors: software vulnerability, inconsistent transparency from election system vendors, and the cybersecurity immaturity of many of these networks responsible for hosting elections. Wow. From 2019 to 2024, they red teamed this stuff. They correlated vulnerability data. And they included assessments of all of the relevant software issues. Things that limit these election officials from doing their job. Security posture. So, flat and minimally segmented networks allowing lateral movement from standard enterprise zones, weak identity and access management, including poor enforcement of multi-factor authentication, shared credentials, inadequate service account hygiene, lack of endpoint hardening, including outdated OS systems, insufficient event logging, legacy remote access and file transfer pathways remain reachable from segments that should be isolated, and insufficient monitoring of network traffic preventing detection of adversary activity. Wow, that seems pretty vulnerable to me. And so here's some mitigation measures. So that is a lengthy report from the Cyber Security Administration, which we were told within hours of the election closing in 2020 that this is the most secure election in American history. Wow. 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 And of course, the media is saying there's nothing to this. It's a nothing burger. Trump is just exaggerating. There was no widespread fraud, just like there's no white genocide. Well, not claiming there's a white genocide, claiming that white people are being persecuted and coloreds and Indians, which is true. And I'm claiming that there's election fraud, which happens in every election. And to claim there isn't, because they know there's election fraud, they use no widespread fraud. But it only took a few thousand votes to steal an election in 1960 in Chicago. This will not be fixed before November. Michigan's elections obviously needs extra security to safeguard elections. It's treason or insurrection allow this election fraud. I agree. Why is Nick Shirley testifying about election fraud? I thought he was covering the Somali Learning Centers. And what makes him an election specialist? Legal system is societal pillar. If it collapses, society collapses. Yep. Dressed like construction work with a shaved head and a stern demeanor around leftists. No hippies ever asked me if I want to sign up to vote. That's funny. Most STEM graduates are conservative as they see the world in laws of physics, maths, engineering. Most humanities teachers are in world opinion degrees. Yep. Yep. The media is doing the same thing. Yeah, here it is. They do with the refugee program. They make about genocide, make it about mass election interference, attach hyperbole to cast doubt about the whole issue. And that's what I've been saying. That's why they do it. It's intended to cause people not to trust the truth. Yep. For Trump's second run at the presidency, all the Democrats had a congressional inquiry into how easy it was to hack voting machines. Yeah. Remember that? Oh, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, how does the state give a vote or counting contract to a private company? Well, Dominion doesn't count the votes, Peter. Okay, I can tell you in Pennsylvania, that's one reason why I ran for judge of elections, and I can tell you with confidence that's not how it works. The Dominion machines, which we use, read ballots. If the ballots are improperly marked or not marked sufficiently, it rejects the ballot. If the ballot's damaged, we have to issue a new ballot. It's a controlled item. We have to count for every single ballot. The ballots then go through the machine. It reads the marks on both sides, and then it's deposited after the vote is registered into the system. There are 2 compact flashcards that store the data simultaneously. One is locked. I cannot remove it. The other one is sealed, and I cannot remove it until the end of the election day. And I can't go in the room where those machines are unless there's a machine fault. And even then, I need to make sure that there are witnesses around, because we have seals and they're numbered seals to track this sort of thing. That's not to say people can't commit fraud, but it would be a serious intentional criminal act to do it. So that data is not connected to any network. Those cards are pulled out. I take the one compact flash card, I put it in a sealed bag with some other information, with voter tabs and results. That goes into a sealed, locked container, which I then drive 45 minutes to the Board of Elections and turn that in every election approximately at 10:15 or 10:30 by the time I get there after the election. So that's here, but I can't speak for what's being used and what Dominion system is being used elsewhere. Light Rain says it's obvious the Colonel's shadow banned unfairly limited in reach while people like Nick Shirley are boosted. He says, I'm still thankful for the attention the kid has brought to all the fraud. It's a win. Yeah, I know. Well, I wish the attention would be brought when I brought this. It's like AfriForum now is writing a story, and Ernst von Sell, whom I like, very good guy, are getting all this attention for writing a report exposing the fraudulent claims that white people own 72% of the land in South Africa. Except that I exposed that in 2018. In 2018, I published an article in 2018. Yeah, but no credit for that, and my story went deeper than what they've got. So let me show you this article from 2018. I've showed some people on this show before what it is. I don't want that. What's this? Oh, one of my colleagues has been appointed to the Wyoming Veterans Commission. Congratulations. I asked for that in Pennsylvania. I got blown off by the leftists because I'm conservative. I asked to be appointed to a vacant seat 6 years ago when I retired. They didn't even know my political views, but they didn't put me on there. Anyway, let me get here. So congratulations, Kelly. A friend of mine. Okay. Or a colleague, I should say. Okay, let me go to show all. I'm over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. I didn't realize it was that many. Okay, YouTube hides these things now because it's not YouTube. LinkedIn hides these things now because it's not their cup of tea. But these are articles I used to write for LinkedIn when I still trusted it before it became a Microsoft hate-wanking site. Bunch of rugby stories here. Zimbabweans, Morgan Shangri and Roy Bennett. So here we go. That was the Green Environmentalist Day. I wrote that. Here you go. South Africa, land and poverty. Can the MDC win the 2018 election? South Africa wins with Ramaphosa election, but much to be done. Okay, and here, the golden age for Afrikaans popular music. I did that one too. So let's look at this land and poverty. In 2018, April 7th of 2018, I published this article, and it wasn't just here, it was elsewhere. Solutions for the benefit of South Africa. This is an opinion piece. I put it clearly up here. I talked about the fake white monopoly capital, white farmland tenure, black dispossession, racism, individual institutional collusion between the ruling ANC and corporate interests. Talked about poverty. I said, hey, you establish a national sovereign wealth fund. You reform, resource, and redeploy the South African police service. You reform public education. You eliminate corruption and corrupt practices in government. There's the Guptas. You implement genuine land reform, not window dressing. And then here is the table that I put in here showing who actually owns land. These are the number of individual landowners in South Africa by race. Those owning farmland in South Africa were just 95,673 out of 56 million people when I wrote this. Of that, 40,500 were black, or 22%. Colored were 12%, or 22,000. Indian were 15,000, or 9%, even though they're only 1% of the population. They own 9% of the land. If anybody was overrepresented, it was coloreds. And people classifying as other, whatever the hell that's supposed to be, were 4%. Yep, 95,000 whites. So 181,532 people were farm owners, farmland owners. 95,673 white people out of a population at that time of 4.5 million white people, 4.6 million white people. Only 95,000 own any land. Yet they lie about it. And I said, addressing the benefit of land for the benefit of all South Africans who lost land since 1910. Who wants land? What do people want the land for? What's its purposes? What would the claimants like? Where would they like to own land? What plans are there for agricultural support, extension services, vocational training skills, Is there a partnership for fixing this together and prudent steps for fair redress of land in South Africa? Complete an honest national public review and debate all land, state, traditional trust, private, and tenure, including identification of land taken from owners or occupants from 1910, 1994, and settlements since 1994. Use existing legal mechanisms to acquire, distribute, and monitor land. There should be a renunciation of all land claims prior to 1910. Remove racial injections into the arguments. Withdraw the constitutional amendment to expropriate without compensation immediately. And where do we go from here? I wrote that in 2018. In 2018. Testifying the fraud in Minnesota and California. Yeah, but what's that got to do with the election? Minnesota at the time of the election, he told me multiple sites were found with Trump's election papers never counted. Oh, yeah. I did because nothing's casing. What you need to take note is that you can pick up coaching and it's not very difficult to analyze. Coaching who, Alan? Who are you coaching? That's got my attention. Thanks for okay, Cyberlaw. Okay, so then this one I wrote back in 2017, November of 2017. I called a golden age for Afrikaans popular music. Teens Jordan is in this image. Yep. More than 2 decades free from the oppressive Calvinist state with a conservative thumb and artificiality of apartheid and singing in a language many consider under siege, it may sound counterintuitive to offer that Afrikaans music may be living in a space where it finds itself on the ascent. Is this the golden age of Afrikaans popular music? Bly kam om praat Afrikaans. Long-established Afrikaans musicians like Kurt Darren and Steve Hofmeyer have in recent years seen the arrival on the scene of Snotkop, Bok van Blerk, Moi, Elvis Sassoon, Jay and Leonie May, Ampie Duprier, Bobby van Jaarsveld, Caroline van Jaarsveld, and Rihanna Nell. The scene is increasingly more dynamic and exciting, with a new crop of young Afrikaans performing artists like Franny du Plessis, Brendan Piper, Joe Foster, Referenza, and Leia, among others, adding to the mix. Stad van Verlangen, that's a good song. Noted as early as 2007 when the Mail and Guardian published a story on how the Delarey phenomenon had thrust Afrikaans music back in the spotlight in South Africa. A decade later, the Afrikaans surge is showing no signs of a let-up. In 2016 Mail and Guardian story on Catherine Lukhoff's South African music streaming startup NicheStream referenced an app to tailor Afrikaans music to individual desires. However, NicheStream's Afrikaans streaming app, Liedtjie, does not appear on the Android playlist, at least not in the US as of this writing. So there she is, Catherine Lukhoff. Bok van Blerk's Delarey may have rekindled the market for Afrikaans music, but old hands like Kurt Darren, Kalfut Soki, and Hofmeyer, established performers like Jay and Leonie May, the Fatai, and Caroline van Jaarsveld, Geskierte Jeans, continue to draw big crowds and fan bases. Even more encouraging is the arrival of new artists like Referenza, who was discovered by a passing motorist who heard him singing along the side of the road. True story. Heartthrobs Brendan Piper, Die Perfecte Een van My, and Joe Foster, Padna Johot. These young male artists compete with, sadly for fans, recently engaged Franny du Plessis and Leah, Met Je Kleuren aan. Brendan Piper, with Afrikaans making up 58% of domestic music sales, demand for the music is high in South Africa. Afrikaans music remains widely popular in South Africa, with annual events such as Afrikaans' Groet selling over 90,000 tickets within 6 hours. This says nothing of the large Afrikaans-speaking communities in the UK, US, Australia, or New Zealand, let alone for non-Afrikaans speakers who enjoy the music abroad. However, options are very limited. With Afrikaans diaspora, there must be a viable digital market abroad as well. The key is to find ways to successfully monetize the current wave of hits abroad. Getting legit legal access to Afrikaans music outside Southern Africa can be challenging. Amazon offers few South African musicians. The Apple and Amazon digital stores have limited selections. Apple does offer more digital Afrikaans music, but its lack of an Afrikaans storefront makes it difficult to find things, let alone keep up with the Afrikaans scene. Google Play is another option for some digital songs. The increasingly antiquated but tried and true method of listening to music on CDs also presents a challenge. Kalahari.net, now takealot.com, caters to a domestic market and offers no digital sales. Amazon, with very few artists, is a poor choice for physical purchases. There are some options to find new or up-and-coming Afrikaans musicians. These include wildhorse.co.za, samp3.com, and emp3dl.co. However, these sites are largely tailored for new artists, so if you want to be out in front of the scene, they're helpful, especially wildhorse.co.za. But if you want to listen to current hit music from abroad, these sites have limited utility. How can you stay current with popular Afrikaans music? Well, short of living in South Africa, one can listen to streaming radio stations. A listing of top Afrikaans music stations is available at 101languages.net Afrikaans radio. A better method to keep up with Afrikaans music is to follow hit list on YouTube. Most popular Afrikaans music is available on YouTube these days. However, while one can find most big hits on YouTube, it is hardly ideal if you want to have an MP3 file for your iPod, mobile phone, or tablet. With no clear winner as far as a web presence to view or listen to Afrikaans music and buy it digitally from abroad, for the moment anyway, YouTube remains the best place to find and listen to the current Afrikaans pop music. Chris Wyatt, Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And there's Leah, Snotkop, Cool Sus Kuskomboys, Kurt Nairns, Kalfoot Soki. There you go. Old age daycare centers. Okay, thank you for that. I'm too effective. They will tolerate less threatening messengers, but if you get too much exposure and we're able to get your projectile saying it would be dangerous. Exactly, Light Rain. Exactly. And the collusion is across the board. People in the media, journalists, contact me for my analysis. They steal it. If they don't contact me, they present it as their own. Others contact me and offer me no credit or use me for background information to create their own stories. Yeah, because God forbid we let people hear who actually has something to say. Yeah, it's true. Hey, Atmospheric. Does anyone have a link for the WhatsApp group for this channel? You want a news link, Mike PR? I'll get you a news link. Hang on, I gotta open up WhatsApp here. I don't have it open. Hang on a second. Let me find one that I use. I'm looking for one that I use a lot. If you want to use WhatsApp, this one will work. Let me see. This group doesn't have many people in because it's just people from all the time. I'll go ahead and let me do it this way. I'll let people start joining this way. So that is one you can join. Okay. And you'll get everything in there. Yeah, anyway, crazy world. President Trump is right. He's right, but people don't want to hear it. Anybody watch my video earlier today about the vigilantes beating people in the streets of South Africa? Anybody watch that? I wonder how videos did today. I don't think they did very well. Well, that one's fine for you, Michael. That's for members. Actually, we're paying members that link. So, but I'm probably going to modify it because there's only 23 in there and have 1,000 plus members. No, not great stuff. So the cash assistance thing still hasn't hit 10,000 views. That's depressing. 9,800. It's died off. I'm not going to make 10,000 on that. That's disappointing. Then the Springbok fan's death. Nobody seems to care about that guy dying. 2,500. That was Sillier Spring. South African police do nothing as vigilante assaults take place. That one's got 4,600. That didn't do very well either. And then Sillier Brink on the city of Pretoria. People don't care about politics. 699 views. I had to spend an hour doing the interview this morning, quite an hour, a half hour doing the interviews, an hour and a half editing those two videos this morning because his connection was bad and I had to take all the gaps out and fix it. Yep, and almost nobody's watched it. Yeah, not a lot of views, Mike. Yep. Hey, whatever. You know, again, we're not doing it. But the problem is that the reach is the problem. And that's what's lost to the hate wankers who attack me. This is not about clicks. It is about people viewing the stuff. from a standpoint. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but when you have limited reach, then you can't, like I said, I wrote about land and survey and I hit it spot on because I analyzed the 2017 land audit, which was based on 2015 information and released in 2017. When it came out, I read the entire report. And then I destroyed the myth that white people own all the land in South Africa. Even by acreage, they don't own all the land in South Africa. First off, only 12% of the land is arable. 12 or 13% of the land is arable. You can only go crops on 12 or 13%. Also, most of that land is under the control of black South Africans. Yeah. Because most of it's in places like the subtropical zones like KZN. But that's never discussed. Never discussed. Here you go. Let me show you a crucial map. Here you go. Let's take a look at this. Now, this graphic is pretty accurate, but let's take a look about land. Now, this one's being shared on X today, but there have been similar maps showed over the years. So let me talk about land in South Africa. Here you go. All right. So these maps show you the arable land. You see the green? High potential, the dark green. So most of the country, at least half the country, has virtually no prospects of viable agricultural area. In the top left-hand side for arable land, the pink shaded stuff is state-owned land. In KwaZulu-Natal, a lot of that is state-owned land, either through the Inganyuma Trust or by the state itself. And you can see up in the northeast corner, it's all the Kruger National Park. You can see all this land, and then the Trans-Kalahari Game Reserve in the top corner where that finger sticks up between Namibia and Botswana. This is all state-owned land. So grazing land, okay? Here's the grazing land. The land with the most potential for grazing is mostly in the hands of black South Africans. Rainfall. Most of the rainfall falls in the eastern side of the country, primarily along the Indian coast, but not exclusively. Also the Mediterranean zones. Population density. You can see that it is where the well-watered land is at. Black South Africans, look where they live. Look where black South Africans live. 80 to 100% of the population in the areas that are dark green is black, which corresponds with the most arable land, the best grazing land, the most rainfall, where black South Africans live. Afrikaans-speaking South Africans, or Afrikaners, live largely in the northern Western Cape, with exceptions in Gauteng and some other spots. But in much of the country, they're 0 to 20% of the population. But in the Western Cape, they're 80 to 100%. That's Afrikaans speakers, so it's white and colored. Look at that. That just speaks volumes. Speaks volumes. No, the report was he did not die instantly. So sadly, he probably suffered before he died. Yep, that's the report. But I can't confirm it. We're waiting for the inquest to tell us what happened. Yep. Yep. Oh, what is this? Verify it's you. Of course it's me. Why am I verifying it's me? This is ridiculous. There we go. I hate when it does that. I don't trust it. Anyway. Yeah, no, we have been, since the 4th of July, it's been a bad July for viewership. A bad July. It really has. June 30th, we were huge. And since then, we've really had some slow days. Oh, Karen has been unsubscribed? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what happened to Hendo 4 times in one day back in 2021, I think it was. Well, Debbie, I need more attention. I need more of a platform, but people are afraid to give a platform to somebody that tells it like it is. That's why it's so amazing to see people like Jordan Peterson break through, and also this guy on X who writes Andre. That guy's amazing. I'm trying to get him on the program, but I haven't had success. He says he watches my program and he loves it, but I haven't had success. What's this? Wow, when you hate men so much, you import black orphan boys out of Africa to turn them into laughingstock sissy boys. Charlene Dazmat Osfordy, yeah. Charlize Theron with her boy turned into a girl. And she has no shame for what she did to this child. Child abuse. Child abuse. Where are the arguments about racism about Charlize Theron for what she's done to this child? Well, Mike Picara, been doing this since 2020. And I've got, let's see how we're doing here. Let me take a look and see. It's not like it's a channel that's unknown, but it is hidden. And the reason we have so many views is because of dedicated viewers. Some who come and go, but this channel in its lifetime since April 2021, replacing the original channel that was censored and removed, but then restored in 2023. This channel has 46,800,000 plus views. Over 4 million hours of my content have been watched by over 129,000 subscribers and many others. Yep. So, you know, when I talk about numbers here about, you know, it's slow, the numbers we're getting now, 20,000 per day. I mean, I go back to 2022, I had 1,100 views in a day. I was excited about that. And I had a big day with 8,000 views in October of 2023, 8,800 views. But I also know this channel can have huge days. For instance, let me find this one. Come on. I had a day with over 400,000 views, one day. Another with over 300,000 views. Another with 275,000 views. Yep. No, so that's why I say 20,000 is a little bit disappointing. But yeah, prediction with China being exposed for election interference. I don't think much will come of it. Trump has known for a long time China is guilty, and he's probably got more on it he hasn't released. You're unsubscribed, Professor G. Yeah, see, atmospheric, they do that. That's what YouTube does. It's ridiculous. Your caseworker is bringing me a letter to sign off her assistance as I'm now here for 90 days. Okay, this is really getting crazy. Send me your case number, your case officer's name, and the name of the agency, Kathy. I know you've had it before, but I've got a million things and I don't know where that's at. So send that to me, okay? I don't know if I have time to trace it down, but I'll try to run it down. You like the interview with Schwani? I like the guy. Seems like a fair person. Yeah, Mike, he is. Where in the Northern Cape, Malbor? Springbok? Where is that in the Northern Cape? Yeah, so 47 million. I'm approaching 50 million views. 50 million views. That'd be nice to get there. I'd love to get there by September 1st, but I don't think that's possible. That's 6 weeks away. And that would mean I'm not going to make it by then. That'd be 47. I need 3 million now. I'd have to have 2 really good months. Yeah, they cut the chain off. Yep, that's a warning. Yep. Yep. Pala Pala, where the secrets play. Where the secrets play.
More than 80% of radical...
Okay, what else we got here? NBC, CBS, NBC face mass calls to have their FCC privileged licenses re-examined or revoked after they refused to air President Trump's primetime bombshell address surrounding elections tonight. Are they including a filter and sensitive to the President of the United States? Well, yes, they are. They absolutely are. President Trump announces 220 million U.S. voter files were stolen by People's Republic of China, and the intelligence community covered up by deep state actors and the government deliberately buried it. A pledge to build America's first Metro Police Detectives Unit here in Cape Town, says Jordan Hill Lewis. Jordan Hill Lewis got 11,000 views from Cape Town, but Jason Bartlett, who's an asylum seeker in America from South Africa, got 19,000 on his post. Robbie Starbuck says Christopher Nolan believes Ellen Page is a man named Elliot. So yeah, I think he's lost his marbles. You can't shame me into pretending a woman is a man, or that a man is a woman, a cat is not a dog, and a woman will never be a man. These people are insane. Christopher Nolan.
And I loved seeing Elliot Page from The First Faces. You see, what was it like reuniting with him years after doing Inception together?
It was really fun. I mean, Elliot's just terrific, and I just thought this was such a great part for him. And I mean, we had such a great time years ago on Inception. It's nice to reunite with people.
The hell is he, Irish? Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't see this. Is this fake? Did they actually do this? Did they actually do this at the FIFA World Cup, or is this fake? So I don't trust anything anymore. Las Malvinas will be Argentinian, or are Argentinian. Did they do that? I didn't see that. Did they actually do that? I don't know if that's real. That's genuine. Well, I have a hard time supporting Argentina then. They have no class. Here's a little note for these pukes from Argentina. The Falklands is British. It's always been British. You never settled it. You never colonized it. You don't get to claim it because it's 2,000 miles off your shore. The uninhabited islands were occupied and colonized by people from Great Britain. Oh, Ascom. Okay, thank you. No, Jack Spratt, since 2018, I've told people that when that survey came out. Before that, I didn't have that data to rely on. That's a government survey. The government itself, only 95,000 plus white South Africans own farmland. That's it. Or white-owned entities, corporations. 95,000 out of 181,000. So about half of the actual farmland was owned by whites. The other half was owned by other people. And then of that, I broke down the whole thing about productive. I did that last year in multiple videos about, the percentage of land. I wonder if I can find that real quick and go through that. I did this in January last year, so let me see if I can find this. Got to go back to January last year. That's June. I got a long way to go. Hopefully I didn't take it out here because I took a lot of stuff out of my folders. Oh, it's not going to be there. It's going to be here. I'm looking in the wrong place. So I need to look here, and I need to go back to January of last year. I made a bunch of slides, January, February timeframe. So there's Pala Pala. It's going to be before that. Let's see. There's Roman Kabinak's story. Okay. Looking for the land stuff I put up here. Rebecca Davis op-ed. Wow, I've put a lot of stuff out there. It's crazy. That was my Estonia video. Nobody cared about that. Looking for the land. Oh, we're back to 2024. That's too far back. Where's the land stuff at here? Has it been that long since I did it? I might have put it in a separate folder. I'm just looking to see if it's easily accessible. I don't see it here. Yeah, there's my scenarios. There was my scenarios for the election. That was in May of 2024. I did that. Looking to see if I've got the land here. That doesn't look like it's here. Damn it, I know I've got those slides somewhere. Anyway. Somewhere I've got those slides. Maybe I went past them and missed them. But I would have sworn it was last year that I did those. Here's my AFL story. Armed Forces Liberia. Primaries. Okay. Ireland betrays Israel. Yep. Wow, I've covered a lot of stuff. UIM suspending Devin Hofmeyer. That's here. The GNU. Okay. The Trump assassination attempt. My Estonia video. Okay, maybe it's here. Rebecca Davies. Who named Africa Africa? Oh, Herman Mashaba's pics. Oh, this is interesting. So this is the Government of National Unity. I made this chart up with the actual vote totals. That's from 2024. The ANC got 40% at 6,459,000. DA 21.8%. IFP, Patriotic Alliance, Freedom Front Plus, UDM, Rise Mzansi, Al Jamaa, Pan-African Congress, and Good Party. Representing 11 million of 63 million South Africans, and that's who's representing you. Yep, that was the Government of National Unity. Okay, let me see. I didn't see that Argentina thing. I wish I'd seen that sooner. Now I'm having a hard time supporting them. Big Daddy Liberty joins John Steenhuisen's team. Anyone heard anything from him lately? So this was, what's the date on this? Properties. This was from October 2024. So this is a graphic I made for a stream in October 2024 when I thanked October of 2024, 21,395 subscribers. There's Hendo, Erica, Karucharu, Koketto Ratsani, CB, Keith Alderson, our favorite Welshman. Yeah. Kali Roo. Yep. There you go. There you go. Oh, well, it was a long time ago now, it seems like. Where the hell is this land stuff at? It really torques me off. I have made videos on land. I'm not seeing those slides here, though. It's odd. They must be in a folder by themselves. Or here you go. So a lot of people are now talking about how the ANC is shrinking. And, you know, I saw that Gareth von Onselen is getting a lot of credit for this. But this is a chart I made January of last year when I talked about the ANC. 1994, 2019, 2024, and look at 2029. ANC make itself irrelevant. I made that point a year and a half ago that Gareth von Onselen is now making and getting press stories for. This is analysis I made years ago. Yep. No credit for it. People come to the conclusions a year, 2, 3 years after I've reached it based on my analysis. And then they get stories published in the press. Anyway. Bonnie Blue. Bonnie Blue. Oh, my goodness. It looks like the landslides aren't here. There's another way to do this. Let me take a look and see if I've got land. If there's any titles that say land. No. Oh, 54. Show all. Okay. That's okay. Lies about land ownership. Let me see if that one's the one that does it. Okay. Okay. Okay, the lies about land ownership one that I did was, what was that? Lies about land. Okay. Okay, that was April 3rd of last year. I did this video. Let's see what this one is. Okay. This is a maize field from last year, folks. Land, an emotive issue. Something people will fight over, people willing to give up their lives over. An emotive issue, something that's of great importance now in South Africa as the ANC has botched the land reform program for 31 years. Here in central Pennsylvania, more and more farmland is being turned over to residential and commercial use. We're seeing farms disappear left and right. Kind of a sad situation. But land is what a lot of people fight over. But the vast majority of human beings own no land whatsoever. Hey folks, welcome back. This is Chris in central Pennsylvania. It's disheartening to see the lies and misrepresentations and outright fantasies that are propagated about land ownership in South Africa. On a break earlier today, I happened to read something from Foreign Counsel by Michelle Galvin, former U.S. ambassador to Botswana. And even she got this wrong, talking about the majority of land in South Africa owned by white South Africans. Now, the only data that's available to corroborate how much land white South Africans actually own is the 2017 land audit, which is the last time the government's actually taken action to review land in South African ownership. Now, some people quibble about how they defined whites in that survey. I don't know what their process was. Some people said simply on surnames, which is hard to believe because that's ludicrous, because most colored South Africans actually have Afrikaans-related surnames, so it would be difficult to say whether they're white or colored. But anyway, let's accept the 2017 land audit for the data that it has, and I have accepted it for a long time. But that data is already 7 years old, so bear that in mind. Now,
here's the thing about land. We keep hearing from the New York Times, from every media outlet in South Africa, and even the foreign minister of South Africa, the head of DIRCO, Director for International Relations and Cooperation, Ronnie Lamola, simply outright tell fairy tales, or in his case, lie. He claimed that whites owned 80% of the land in South Africa. That's fiction, no matter how you look at it. It all stems from the fact that in 2017, land that was designated as agricultural by the South African government, white South Africans own 72% of that land. But let's roll back the numbers here. South Africa's total surface area is 114 million hectares. 21% of that is owned by the government of South Africa in 2017. So 21%, making the second largest single by group land owner in the country. If we're using groups such as whites, coloreds, Indians, black South Africans, but as a group, the government of South Africa owned 21% of all the land, the surface area of South Africa. Now, 93 million hectares was in private ownership, either through trust or businesses or individual ownership in 2017. Of the 93 million hectares, 36 million of that was classified as agricultural holdings. Now that includes macadamia nut farms, people growing wheat, dairy farms, but also things in the Karoo that have thousands of hectares that you need just...
By the way, there's no script. There's no rehearsal. There's no editing of joint. There's a couple clips there because someone drove by. I had to cut the noise out. It was in a residential neighborhood in Carlisle Barracks, the Army War College. This is knowledge, analysis, facts, because I've done this so often. There you go. There you go. Deleted. What's being deleted?
To have sheep to graze because the quality of the soil is so poor and the vegetation is sparse. So 36 million hectares of the 114 million are agricultural. Not all are well watered, just they're designated as agricultural because only 13% of the land is actually arable. It's a far smaller percentage. But 36 million hectares of agricultural land. White South Africans, according to the definition who was white in 2017 by the government, owned 26 million hectares of the agricultural land. So that's where the 72% comes from. But bear in mind, that's 2017. A lot has changed since then. Land has changed hand. The government has bought more hectares of land, willing buyer, willing seller basis. And a lot of people have exited the commercial farming business. The number of commercial farmers who are white in South Africa has declined to somewhere between 28 and 32,000 from a total of 72,000 commercial farmers back in 1994. Quite a drop. So there are fewer and fewer white South Africans on commercial farms around the country. So white commercial farmers own 72% of the agricultural holdings. But that represents just 29% of the surface area of the country, 29%. Now, you take that and you realize that represents just 29% of the privately held land. So just under 1/3 of the land that's in private hands was owned by whites, who make up about 8 to 9% of the population. So overrepresented for sure as far as land ownership, but not the lies that Ronnie Lamola is telling you. And if you look at the total surface area of South Africa, it goes from 29 to 23%. So white South Africans in 2017 owned 23% of the surface area of South Africa. Now, there are other whites who own land, residential, but that doesn't add up to much in the way of things. So this is the lie that's perpetrated to spread racial hatred in South Africa and divide South Africans. Now, the problem here is that politicians in South Africa don't want to deal with facts. Ronnie Lamola, the media, and many others, including the New York Times and publications around the world, consistently lie, either because they're lazy or they're dishonest. It's not difficult to find this information. All you have to do is look at the 2017 land audit, and you can find all the facts. Everything's there. You don't have to believe me, ladies and gentlemen. Check the receipts. Go to the 2017 land audit, which is freely available for download from the government of South Africa. Do a Google search. You can download it, look through it, and find this information. So why is this narrative pushed? Well, it's pushed to retain votes for the ruling party. And of course, the media in South Africa in cahoots with the ruling party. So they push this narrative. Foreign media are lazy or dishonest to push a narrative, a racially tinged narrative. For whatever reason, people hate white South Africans in international media. Don't know why. The majority of white South Africans in South Africa were born after apartheid and have nothing to do with it. They've lived only under the African National Congress in their entire existence. So it's time for people to start telling the truth about land in South Africa. Yes, white South Africans own a disproportionate share. Yes, land was taken from people illegitimately, immorally, but legally during the apartheid era, and even before that, starting with the Native Lands Act of 1913 going forward. But an agreement was reached at the Convention for Democratic South Africa, the CODESA convention that took place in the early 1990s. The agreement was that land claims would only go back to 1910 when the Union of South Africa was formed. Now we're seeing people reneging on that agreement, which is one of the main reasons that apartheid ended, is an agreement was reached on not claiming land before that date, because there was no South Africa before 1910. You had the Zulu kingdom, you had other kingdoms, you had the Boer republics, the Free State and the Transvaal, you had the Cape Colony from Britain and the Natal Colony. So it was an amalgamation of all these things brought together after the Anglo-Boer War, which led to the creation of the Republic of South Africa, which didn't exist before that. So 1910 was a reasonable date to go with. But people claiming land from 1658 and 1787, these are things lost to the sands of time. It's illegitimate. And nobody alive today has any legitimate claim to any of those lands. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But the bottom line with land in South Africa is that it's an emotive issue. And therefore people benefit by lying and misleading. The truth of the matter is this: white South Africans own more land disproportionately than other ethnic groups in South Africa. But we're only talking about a very small number of people. The total number of white landowners in 2017 in the entire country at that time of, 58 million people was around that time, 58 million South Africans, only 95,000 white South Africans owned any land. There are 4.8 million white South Africans, so almost all white South Africans don't own land. To call whites landowners and say they stole the land is dishonest, disingenuous, and it's simply quite nasty race hustling. It needs to stop. The government has had a policy in place which they failed to use properly. They've acquired 3.9 million hectares of land, more than that now. They've not distributed properly. They don't provide extension services, credit, education, training for aspiring farmers. When it comes to land, lots of stories and fairy tales are told all over the world about land dispossession. But the story of humankind is one of possession and dispossession, of colonization and settlement. It's a story of different peoples moving in different places around the world. But land is, of course, an emotive issue, as I said. Here behind me, Springfield coming up in central Pennsylvania as we get ready for the next season here on the East Coast of the United States. The reality here is that the government of South Africa, under the African National Congress, has botched the land question, in my view, intentionally. They're also lying about the land. There were 75,000 legitimate land claims in the period that was authorized from 1995 to 1999. Now, if you want to make a claim, it didn't have to be you that was cheated. It could have been your parents, your grandparents. As long as it was from 1910 forward, whether it was a Native Lands Act or the District 6 removal, whatever the situation was, you could claim it. Most people took a financial settlement. And we could have legitimate discussion about whether that settlement was fair or equitable, and I think that's a legitimate discussion. I think people took less money than they were entitled to, but nonetheless, they accepted the settlement, done and dusted. Now we have people coming back. This is ridiculous. Land that was given to aspiring black South African farmers. This video failed, attacked for a variety of reasons. But this is an objective video. They sell the land, someone buys it, turns out to be a white farmer. Video. Now people are coming back and saying that land was stolen. Not hyperbole. It was bought in.
What happened there? The sound got all screwed up.
What's say you South Africa legitimately from people who couldn't farm it successfully because the government didn't support them. So you decide for yourself. Whether it's for commercial use, residential use, industrial use, public space, or agricultural use, land is an emotive issue. Land is something people will fight wars for. Land is something people are willing to die for. That's unfortunate. There is, after all, a limited amount of land on this planet, unless, of course, you're the Dutch and you reclaim it from the sea. But for most of us, land is a finite space, and people compete for it. But going back over the centuries to claim land that was lost through the sands of time, through conflict, is a ridiculous exercise, to say the least. It's been the nature of human societies over the centuries to move, colonize, settle amongst other people, and oppose alien systems and take possession of land. That's been the history of humankind. I'm standing here on the Appalachian Trail, which runs from Georgia in the south to Maine in the north. I'm looking north-south behind me. Now, this is a project that was created to incorporate private land and public land so that there'd be a hiking trail along the entire spine of the Appalachian Mountains in the eastern United States, from the south all the way to the north. It was quite an effort, quite an endeavor. Many people walk the entire length of this trail, some many times. I've never walked the entire length, just little segments of it in North Carolina and here.
Not sure what happened there, if there's an editing thing or I rushed to get it done. But yeah, I need to, interesting thing, that video got 82,000. I think that what I'll do is pull up the original video, add a prelude to it, and then fix that portion there with sound and reload it and see if I get a couple thousand views. It won't get 82,000. Yeah, no, but Cecilia Kruger, that's what you get from me. You get in-depth, cogent, honest, objective analysis on these issues. And whether it's race relations or macroeconomics or counterterrorism, trade, language, culture, that's what you get on this channel. But people seem to ignore that, the haters. So, yeah, so that I need to get that thing. There's some Lecker rugby this weekend. Are you going to cover the show? No, I'm not, because, James, I have no way to access. Unless someone has a way for me to get into the Curry Cup, I have no access to the Curry Cup. My provider lost their rights to broadcast. Flow Rugby no longer covers the Curry Cup in America, and that really sucks. I'm not happy about it. I look it up, and it says that, and I wrote to Saru. Let's see if they answer my question. Let me see. Well, that's not what I want. Let's go here. I wrote to them and asked a question. Oh, but it was on the, yeah, let me see if they answered back. I doubt that they did. South African Rugby Union. Let's see if they answer me back. Okay. No, I have nothing from Saru since June. Nope. Wow. Yep. No, they not answered it back. I asked them who they gave the broadcast rights to in the States, because I can't find who it is. So no, I won't be able to watch any. Oh wait, here's some. Oh, they want feedback. Please, you want feedback? Feedback I want is why you lost the broadcasting rights, and you didn't tell us that. You know, that's one reason why I subscribed to this, so I can watch Curry Cup, and now I can't. Stupid fools. Anyway, wow. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, it sucks. My goodness. Lottie and Gitz. That's the. These are their World Cup ambassadors. What the hell? Lotte Turgay and Matt. Oh, Matt Giddow. Matt Giddow. Okay, yeah, okay. So they're using old Australian guys to be their ambassadors for the Rugby World Cup next year. Oh, I gotta sneeze again. Excuse me. Anyway. Yeah, so. But I had other videos. I'm trying to find the one that has all the stats. No, man. Let me see. Okay, show all 54 videos. Let me see if I can find this now, because that wasn't the one I was looking for. Okay. It says 54, but there's only 30. What the hell? Huh. One that has the charts in it. I know I've got one that's got the charts in it. Oh, here it is. Whites on all the land. Maybe that's it from last year. Let me see if it's in there. This is another one I did last year on Whites Own All the Land. Leftist distraction tactics at work, hoodwinking the gullible. Yep. So I don't know if this one has what I'm looking for. Let me see. No, this one doesn't seem to have the charts in it that I had from the others. No. No, I just talked in that one, so that's not helpful. Okay, so let me get back here. Yeah, I wish. Why does it do that? It goes back. I have to try to search for it again. Land. Okay. You show all 54 videos supposedly. Okay. That is not. I wonder. No, maybe it was on my original channel, but I've got the slides because I broke it all down. So anyway, not important right now. Yeah. Mike's got to go. Okay, well, I think we all got to go. It's going on 1 o'clock in the morning. I have an interview at 10:30. It's 4:30 South Africa time. Another South African refugee, okay? That's coming up. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. I want to make a video about that thing I just showed you, about the laughing about the plight of white South Africans. Yep. No, most of the work I do doesn't get appreciated. People don't see it. They don't remember it. Yep. But thank you for recognizing that, Kathy. I appreciate it. All right. All right, guys, I'm going to take a break here, try to make a video real quick, and then hit the rack. All right, I'll see you later on for the interview later this morning. Cheers.